guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of Outside the Arena with Rob and Griff. I'm Griffin Senek, joined by my co-host Rob Goldberger, and we're in that weird week that happens every year, the week of the Pro Bowl, in between the conference championships and the Super Bowl. Obviously, last week, very surprising, the Super Bowl matchup. I don't think anyone was thinking this at the beginning of the year. The Cincinnati Bengals versus the Los Angeles Rams. It's going to be a very good matchup. America's team at this point, it seems to be the Bengals. Everyone's kind of jumped on the Joe Burrow wagon. And but that Rams team, we're going to get into it a little bit today. Not too much. We're going to save our full breakdown of the game for next week. But the Rams are a very good team that have proven a lot of people wrong right now. But we're just going to start initially. And there's obviously a lot of news in the NFL. Tom Brady also retiring. We are going to touch on that after we cover the latest in the games. Obviously, the GOAT retiring, pretty crazy, but another week, another game winner for the Bengals. And I mean, I think both of us were absolutely shocked at the outcome of this game and the total collapse of the Kansas City Chiefs in the second half. Once again, the Cincinnati Bengals. It's pretty astonishing. We saw the Chiefs get out to a 21-3, I believe it was, start. And they obviously, couldn't get that touchdown in the final seconds before the second half. And like they did in week 17, they imploded in the second half. And something we were talking about in this podcast before last week's game was we didn't feel that would be the case. We felt that Kansas City would be able to keep the gas on the pedal. And I mean, just a total implosion here. Mahomes in that first half was perfect. In the second half, far from, 2 interceptions. Just a really, really weird, crazy game. And the Cincinnati Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. Absolutely insane.
Just an insane game. Just when teams get hot, man, there's very, what can you say? I think just an all-time great defensive performance from the Bengals in the second half.
Jesus.
But I want to point to a couple of key plays, I think. Sorry. Of course, my dogs freak out as soon as I do this. But
you're good.
All right. I think obviously the play right before halftime is the biggest play of the game. I really do. I mean, just Mahomes and Reed just not on the same page. Patrick Mahomes thought there was a timeout. Andy Reid probably should have just settled for the 3 points or called a play that was going to, make sure the ball was in the end zone. Just little mistakes, man. And you think, it's not going to come back to haunt them at the time. But I think on that next drive when Tyreek Hill drops a pass. When does Tyreek Hill drop passes? Travis Kelce drops a pass. I think that drive is so key. Because I think even if you don't get those points at the end of the half, I don't know if you remember, it was a third down lob play to Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce dropped it. I think if you have that, the Chiefs probably close out and win. But if you don't, close out opportunities against a really good team like the Bengals with a really great quarterback and a really great offense, you're going to come to regret it. I mean, it was just dominance by the Bengals in the second half. The Chiefs didn't even put up a fight. And I just think missed opportunities, the story of the game, the story of the season for the Chiefs. I think when they look back and they got to this run of 4 AFC championship games in a row, I think they're going to be a little regretful they only got 1 Super Bowl out of it. I think this is a team, they probably could have had 3 or maybe all 4 even if they were healthy last year. But I just think it's missed opportunities, basically, is what I'm saying for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, but I think the Cincinnati Bengals defense, I don't think I've ever seen as stark a readjustment at halftime as that. I mean, Eli Apple talked his shit and backed it up. I mean, what can you say? But still not a fan of the guy. However, I mean, I am glad it didn't end on a coin toss, because I do want to say, so we could avoid that for weeks and weeks of Discord instead of talking about the actual game. But yeah, I mean, that Bengals defense, special performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a game where this was a closure to an era of this Chiefs team. I think the Kansas City Chiefs, frankly, have been getting away with some of these players on offense, like the McCole Hardmans, the DeMarcus Robinsons, the Byron Pringles. I think that era ended on last Sunday. It's just McCole Hardman's, he's a good player. I think he's the best out of that group. Byron Pringle's shown flashes, but at the end of the day, these guys they're just not getting open when Mahomes needs to. And if teams are what we're seeing is if teams were able to, as the Bengals were in that second half, really just take away Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, any matchup they can really take them. As long as you don't get burnt by speed, as long as you guys have guys who are helping. And I mean, this offense, it was just a mess. I mean, I just don't believe those are guys who can be serious weapons on a Super Bowl contending team. I mean, you look at the Cincy Bengals, look at that wide receiver room. They got 3 superstars at that position. And CJ Uzmo, who obviously got hurt in this game, he's not Travis Kelce, but he's a pretty darn good player. And they also have Joe Mixon in that backfield. And same with the secondary for the Chiefs. I mean, outside of the Honey Badger, who it's unclear if he'll be able to even be re-signed, they don't really have any studs out there. And I think we're really going to have to see this team start investing some premium picks in those 2 positions. I think last year it was the case of the offensive line. That was what was missing. That's what killed them in the Super Bowl. I just don't believe those guys in the secondary and the wide receiver room are good enough at this point for the Chiefs to really win and beat some of these teams. I mean, just the Chiefs in general. I mean, the Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick. I mean, he's played all right, but he lost the job to Jerick McKinnon. It's clear, he wasn't a great pick. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, this was just a closure of this era of football. This is still a phenomenal team. They're going to be probably the favorites even in the AFC next year. I just think they have room to adjust. And for the Bengals, I mean, what a turnaround. That defense, like you said, I mean, it was scary in that second half. I mean, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, those guys are unreal edge rushers. They're not the big name players that you may have heard of, the Bosa's, the Aaron Donalds of the world, the superstars like that. But these 2 guys are pretty dang good, and they're as good as anyone in the league, especially Trey Hendrickson. I mean, he is almost a top 5 edge rusher at this point in the NFL. It's pretty crazy to say. And they've got guys in the secondary. Like
I like you writing that underdog narrative for Trey Hendrickson, Griff, but he is making $15 million a year. I mean, I think he does have the biggest edge contract in the NFL.
He's not I'm not saying, but like in terms of the casual fan, the guys
I know what you mean.
No one really knows this guy. He's playing in Cincinnati, who until this year, the team really wasn't, on the map. And the secondary, I mean, Jesse Bates, what a superstar this guy is. And they've got pieces. I mean, Eli Apple, he's obviously been the most outspoken, but he's by far the worst. I mean, Awuzie has been great. Mike Hilton has been really good this year. Even Trey Flowers. I mean, they've just got guys in the secondary, good linebackers. This is a well-rounded defense. It's not amazing, but they had a sensational half. Jamar Chase, sensational as always. T. Higgins is great. And Joe Burrow, I want to ask you this. I mean, Joe Burrow, I know we've talked about him versus Justin Herbert right now, and you've been always on the Herbert train, but I've kind of leaned. I think Joe Burrow is just one of those guys, kind of like the Tom Brady, where he might not be as naturally talented as Justin Herbert, but this guy's just a winner, and he knows how to get it done, and he's clutch in the moment. What do you think about Burrow versus Herbert right now?
Well, I mean, I just think it's hard to, like, if I'm going to say Justin Herbert, I'm going to get slandered relentlessly, but I don't know. I think it's hard to make an indictment on either of these 2 guys right now. I mean, I think you're right. Joe Burrow does have this something about him, but I think even like talking about like those like intangible traits, such like leadership, winning, like all that. I mean, Joe Burrow he has so many of these real tangible football traits that you see, like his accuracy is unreal. His pocket presence is unreal. And I think the way he just runs an offense, like, he keeps them calm always, I think. I don't think there was ever a moment where the Cincinnati Bengals, I think we all thought the game was over. I mean, Griffin and I were texting, Bengals can't keep pace with them. This is a game. This is a blowout. Just put the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I mean, Burrow never really seemed to falter. I mean, it's just, there was never like, he's just, I don't know how to answer this question for you right now, because I think Justin Herbert is like an alien from outer space. And I think, remember, it's just, you got me stumped here, Griff. You really do. Right now, I'll still take Justin Herbert for the future, but I think both of them are future top 5 quarterbacks. I think they're both future MVPs. And I think Joe Burrow, like you said, is going to end up being one of the ultimate winners. But I think you made a really good point about the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are willing to spend money. They've made that clear in the past, time and time again. I think Brett Veach, their GM, he knows to not get at least 3 or 4 Super Bowls out of the Patrick Mahomes era would be a massive failure for the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I was saying about earlier, I think there's a chance they go after not only investing, premium picks in those skill positions, but I think there's a chance they go after an Odell Beckham Jr. this offseason. I really do. Or, even a Chris Godwin. I know he's hurt, but regardless, maybe for late in the year, I think there's some guys that they will make an effort. I think they're going to push very hard, like you said, for skill position, because I think just not good enough from the receivers, man, at all. I mean, Mecole Hardman is a good player, and he would be really good on like a Jacksonville Jaguars team that needs, a receiving option. But this guy isn't, he's not a number 2 for the AFC Championship game. He's not. Simple as that. But yeah, Bengals, man, Bengals. Teams getting hot. That beats all logic sometimes.
It doesn't.
I just want to say something. Was Zach Taylor point shaming for the Chiefs? Joe Burrow, I hate to say it, and I really hate to crap on anybody on the Bengals right now. I really do. But I really respect Joe Burrow, because it seems like he was playing in spite of his head coach this game. I think I understand it's tough to inspire a team, but in that first half and even in that second half, man, I think they just need to let Joe Burrow sling the ball. And I think they got really Joe Mixon. I know you're a big guy. I know you're a big, they needed to run the ball, but they were throwing all over the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm just not sure they can win against the Los Angeles Rams this way. I don't think Joe Mixon needed 21 carries in that game, especially by the time the third and the fourth quarter rolled around. I just think Zach Taylor's play calling was abysmal, and that's what makes it all the more impressive that Joe Burrow is doing what he's doing. But yeah, that's my unpopular opinion.
And I think real quick before we move to the next game, I mean, we kind of touched on this last week, but this kind of seems like this is like the Bengals' big window for the Super Bowl here. I mean, you really look at the AFC North next year. I mean, the Steelers, I think, are really going to be in last place. I think their run is nice and over at the playoffs, but Cleveland Browns are going to be better. They've got, having a good draft pick for that kind of team. I mean, if they can go out and get like a Garrett Wilson, a Drake London, one of those kind of receivers, that could change their entire offense. The Baltimore Ravens are going to be much healthier. They're going to be a completely different team. It's going to be a tougher division, and there's a lot of young quarterbacks in this AFC, and we're going to see. I mean, I think the Bengals are going to be contenders for the near future, no doubt. This is a playoff team, but in terms of having your best shot to win a Super Bowl, I mean, this is it. Who knows how many times? I mean, I think the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're really going to come back a lot stronger next year, if I'm being honest. I think that this team, they've drafted really well, and I think they're going to probably find this team just needs more talent at those positions, wide receiver and cornerback, and even safety a little bit. I mean, you can't get around that. And that's what they've been doing. They've been kind of working around it for these last few years. They got the O-line now, but those positions you gotta address at this offseason, and I'm sure they will. Like you said, OBJ, there's already been links to there. I mean, he's really revitalized himself with the Rams, it looks like. I mean, he's played great there. As much as I dislike OBJ, to be honest, he's really, proved people wrong there with the Rams. And I mean, you add him to that team, and it's a scary sight, to be honest. Even like a Juju's been linked there. Like, I don't think he's a superstar, but he's proven he can be a very solid player, especially with other very talented weapons on that team, especially the Antonio Brown year. Juju Smith-Schuster was one of the best receivers in the National Football League. Like, Juju as a true number 1, I think really is not it, but you add him with Kelsey and Tyreek, I think he could be in for a big year, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I think they just need those to stack upon the secondary weapons. And really, they shouldn't have lost this game, man. I mean,
yeah.
I hate to be that guy, like be this ultimate like Chiefs apologist, and I'm actually not. It's actually more of my criticism is directed at them. They choked this game away, man. They had an opportunity to win this game, even as the Bengals mounted their comeback time and time again. Missed opportunity after missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And I mean,
the 2-minute warning, overtime. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, listen, I think everything needs to break right for you to win a Super Bowl. Certainly did for the Eagles 4 years ago when I was watching. It does every year. Tom Brady, the greatest one in the sport, is also known for being extremely lucky. But that's how it goes in football. That's how it is. And the Bengals are doing that right now, and that just speaks to this point about this championship. But no, they can do this. They can beat the Los Angeles Rams next week. I just think Joe Burrow is really Joe Burrow is giving them this shot to win, but they got pretty fortunate here, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. They had good matchups too. I mean, the Raiders and the Titans.
Yeah.
I mean, no discredit. They went and beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. So
Yeah,
you
they did.
can't
It's the
you
toughest
can't
thing to do in the
discredit
sport,
them.
really.
Yeah, but they've had some nice matchups. Moving on to this next game, Jimmy Garoppolo's last game as a San Francisco 49er, I think, is a very safe assumption at this point. He's even come out publicly and basically said that. San Francisco, I mean, this is a game where they just couldn't get their game plan established. And I mean, I think you can just look at the running numbers and tell why they lost this game. This is a team that's been built on the run throughout the season. They've really dominated through the run. And when you have to put the ball in Jimmy G's hands, I think he's a solid player. I think he can get the job done at times, but you just can't have him have to win you the game for an entire game. I mean, these rushing stats are 1.8 from Eli Mitchell here. It's just abysmal, to be honest. Very bad game. And for the Rams, I mean, it's weird that this was a 3-point game. You'd think this was, the way the Rams played, this seems like it should have been a much bigger difference. But San Fran, I mean, they choked on that interception. What a weird game. Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham. I mean, you see the stats, just sensational. Matthew Stafford will get to play in the Super Bowl. What do you think of this one, Rob?
Jimmy G is just not good enough, man, for me. I think we were having a pretty spirited argument during the game, Griff, about Jimmy G and, his merits to be the San Francisco 49ers starting quarterback. But I just look at that stat. That's abysmal. 16 of 30. That's pathetic, especially in that dumbed down game plan they run for him. I think the Niners are in a tough spot, though, because it's like they have to start Trey Lance next year because they traded their entire future for him, right? But man, would a veteran QB make a lot of sense for them right now? It really would. Outside of their quarterback, I think this might be the best roster in the NFL. I really do. I don't really think they have a lot of weak spots outside of the most important position in the sport. But Jimmy G lost them this game. Not good enough. Even at the end, he had a chance to go down and win and threw one of the most Carson Wentz looking interceptions I've ever seen in my life. But Jimmy G, not good enough. And look, good for Matthew Stafford, but the story of this game for me just was not about the Rams offense. It was about Jimmy G's inability to execute for me. Especially in that second half. Man, was he bad in the second half. They just couldn't score, and they were putting that defense on the field over and over and over again. And like you said, they couldn't get their run game going at all. And I think that brings a point. I get you can get to maybe even the AFC Championship game, with this run heavy game plan with an okay quarterback, when the rest of your team, and even Jimmy G 2 years ago, I think was way better than Jimmy G is now. If we're making that point, but I just think when you have a quarterback as bad as Jimmy G, I'm sorry, he was bad. He was bad the week before that too. And in the second half, he implodes in the second half consistently. I get the Lambeau game is tough to blame him for, but the Cowboys game, he imploded in the fourth quarter. He let them back in it. He's not good enough to win you an NFC Championship team against great defenses like you're going to see the Rams. I mean, I understand that a defense like this Rams unit isn't going to be assembled too often just because of their age and the draft capital that it took to get all those superstars on one team. But you're going to face defensively elite teams, and quarterbacks like Jimmy G are not going to be enough to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my take on this game. I think it really came down to him.
I've been a Jimmy G guy. I believe he's proven he can win, with a good surrounding cast, and then he, in the moment, can sometimes get the job done. But this era with him in the 49ers it's over. Trey Lance, I mean, my kind of argument, and I think where we were discussing is, when the Niners looked like they were going to win this game, what the future would look like for Jimmy if this team was in the Super Bowl, and if they win the Super Bowl. But that just didn't happen. And the way he played at the end of this game, it's over for him. I saw a report today that they'll look for either a second round pick or a third and plus a player, which, to be honest, I mean, I think one team that I think Jimmy G would be a solid fit on, to be honest, would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that offense is kind of a solid offense for him. You saw what Big Ben was able to do. He led them to the playoffs with that team. Well coached.
I gotta say, Griff. I think if Malik Willis falls to the Pittsburgh Steelers, there is a 100% chance they're taking him. It's the worst. Yeah.
But I mean, their pick it's down. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to start doing mock drafts in a bit, but I believe Malik Willis will probably end up I mean, the problem is it's a bad quarterback class, but these guys
It's
just
the
are
quarterback
going,
position,
man.
but it's the quarterback position.
Like Malik Willis, I believe, honestly, him and Kenny Pickett, these guys could both be drafted in the top 10.
Got to tell you, sorry, we're spoiling our draft things down the way, but Carson Strong from Nevada, I'm a big fan. I think he's got a cannon for an arm. But sorry, back to the.
It's going to be a very interesting draft. I mean, you hear the Lions are open for business at 2, but I don't think a quarterback will go that early. I think like picks 7 through 10, I think we might see 2 quarterbacks go right about then. I think that's why the Lions might honestly want to trade back a little bit and scoop one of those QBs there, but we're getting ahead of it. But no, I think Pittsburgh would be like if Pittsburgh wants to, like, I think Jimmy G could lead them to the playoffs. I don't think they'd be a championship caliber team, but I think like he's an upgrade over Big Ben. So I think they'd be a better version of the team they were this year in my mind. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. This is Trey Lance's team now. It's a good roster. But man, it's risky putting Trey Lance in there. I mean, it's now a guy who hasn't played football for 2 years.
But you got to do it, man. You got to do it.
I mean, it's just the pick they made. That's the decision they made for their future. Trey Lance is their franchise QB, and if he's solid, I mean, their hope is that they hit on this pick. And I think Trey Lance could be a very good quarterback. I think he's got the intangibles, the skills. My worry is just this guy's hasn't played in 2 years, so like some stuff like game IQ, like you can really only teach that. I mean, as good as practice is and as good as the coaches are at helping, the only thing you can really, and the only way you can really get better is just by doing it, making mistakes in the game. And that's what I fear for this 49ers team, is that Trey Lance is just going to have a season where he's going to have to relearn everything on the field and just is going to have to learn from his mistakes, which would be a nightmare for the 49ers if another season goes down the drain, because some of these players, they're getting, they're only going to be good for so long. For the Rams in this game, I mean, this was, Matt Stafford, this offense has been playing sensational throughout the playoffs. And I don't want to spoil my pick for the Super Bowl, but I do like the Los Angeles Rams a lot. And I think this is a defense that is seriously going to cause issues for the Bengals offensive line. I mean, you're going to have Von Miller and Aaron Donald going up against, scrubs, if I'm being frank. And their secondary too, man. I mean, Jalen Ramsey, there you go. If you put
Darius
him on Jamar
Williams
Chase,
is a player. Darius Williams is a player too.
Very good. And you can easily in this game take away Chase in a way, and then you double T. Higgins or so, and then all of a sudden you're left with Tyler Boyd. Maybe CJ Uzomah plays. I mean, then it gets hairy all of a sudden for Cincinnati. So I think the Rams they just match up so well, I think, with the Cincinnati Bengals. But the Cincinnati Bengals, man, they're as hot as anyone, and they've proved me wrong anytime. So it's hard to bet against them. But the Rams in this game, I mean, they won the game. They came back late. Matt Stafford, you got to feel good for the guy. I mean, this guy was trapped in Detroit for numerous years, and finally has that chance. Finally has a team of superstars assembled, and he's proven everyone wrong. A lot of people thought this team, including yourself, I believe, that this team would be eliminated second round. A lot of people even thought early on that this team wasn't good enough, and man, they played really good football. And it's interesting, like these NFC West teams, the Rams, the 49ers, we saw Seattle kind of dominate the 4 or 5 years before. They're consistently in the Super Bowl. I mean, this is 2 of the last 5 years now, or 2 of the last 3 or 5 years now. The Rams have been on the Super Bowl. Probably one. Let's see. Last year was. It's probably been 2 of the last 4 years, I guess. Correct.
No, it's you had the
It was
Rams
Patriots.
twice. You had the Rams twice and the Niners before that, and then in between you had the Bucks. So it's 3 out of 5 years. No, 3 out of 4 years.
No, 2. They've only made it twice in the Super Bowl.
No, but
2
I'm
out of
saying
4
like
years.
NFC West. No.
Yeah,
But I'm saying
3 out
the
of
NFC
4
West
years
team.
for the NFC West. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll talk about the NFC South in a minute, but that's gonna be a bad division. But
yeah,
I mean, the NFC West teams, this is just a division that started to dominate outside of that Arizona Cardinals team, which I mean, I'm honestly scared for that rebuild, for the rebuild, but for the state of the Arizona Cardinals. I think they're in a really sketchy spot in terms of being able to truly win a Super Bowl. But yeah, Los Angeles, they got it done. I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. And I mean, this Cooper Kupp, man, I mean, this guy's just sensational. I mean, there's not much too much to say on this game. It's kind of a dull game. I mean, you had the botched interception and all that, but Rams got the job done.
That was another play of the game, man. That botched interception, I think the Niners had that. especially considering McVay had all his timeouts called by the 8-minute mark.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
As great as these two guys are offensively and and their play calling and their offensive design, their game management is often subpar, I would say. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've kind of hinted at it. We'll talk about it real quick. Just some initial thoughts on this game, kind of what your storylines you're kind of already thinking about, what you think is really the key of these games for both sides to win this game. What do you think?
I think obviously the key to this game for both teams is that defensive line versus that offensive line matchup. It'll be huge for the Bengals, even if they get beaten not that badly. But I just can't envision this going well for Cincinnati and Joe Burrow, man. But I said that in Kansas City as well. But this is a whole different breed, this Los Angeles Rams defense. This is a defense that was giving Tom Brady fits for, the majority of the game. And they obviously, despite losing Christian Wirfs, had elite members of the offensive line elsewhere. This team doesn't have a single good offensive lineman, Griffin. So I think that's the key to the game. And I think obviously for the Rams, it's going to be able to throw that ball in the Cincinnati secondary. I think if they can move the ball through the air, find Cooper Kupp, take Trey Hendrickson out of the game. I think if the Rams play their game, they'll be fine. I just think such a hard path to victory for the Bengals because I think that Rams pass rush is, if the Rams get up early at all, this game is done. And I know the Bengals just lost a huge comeback, but it doesn't matter because if the Bengals at all get down by like 10, I think this game is over because they're going to have to pass on every down. And if that happens, you're just going to have the Rams free firing every play. And it's going to be a disaster. I think if the Cincinnati Bengals have to throw the ball 60 times to win, it's not going to be a good scene for them. That Rams defensive line, I mean, that Von Miller trade could not be looking any better than for a Super Bowl matchup like this. I mean, how perfectly did that work out for them? Yeah, man, it's just going to be tough. And I get that they're the huge underdogs, and I get that they did it to Kansas City. But number one, beating teams like the Chiefs and the Rams twice in a row is very difficult. When I think, as great as they are, they're an inferior opponent to both, I got to say. And I also have said, I think the Rams have a significant advantage in the head coaching matchup. Significant. But yeah, the Bengals' key to victory, defense for me. I think the defense has to play exactly like they did in that second half against the Chiefs. And, Odell Beckham Jr. is a hell of a lot better of a second option, than what's Tyler Higbee's health status, Griff?
I don't know at this point. I think it's very him, like CJ Uzmoa. It's very hard to see what will happen. I think right. I don't know if Higbee's out for the year. I'll look it up.
Yeah. Matt Stat. He didn't practice. Was the latest report. He has an MCL sprain.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
he'll play. If that's the case, he'll play.
Yeah.
But yeah, they need to be they need a huge performance from Trey Hendrickson, I think, to win this game.
Yeah. I think for the Los Angeles Rams, their key to victory, you kind of touched on it, just get to the quarterback, keep the pressure on throughout the game. And I think that you just got to limit those weapons of the Cincinnati Bengals, kind of trying to eliminate one or two of them and make them play through one of them and make Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins, probably Tyler Boyd, I'd say, is the worst out of that group. He's a good player, but make him have to win the Bengals the game, make him have to make the plays, run the routes. I think the Rams just need to establish their offense early. Just get guys like Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham, just get these guys involved and in good matchups. Try to, Sean McVay is a very good coach. They've got a very good offensive design. I think this team will be able to run a lot of good plays, and it seems like Cooper Kupp's just always open. So if that's the case, it could be a long night for the Cincinnati secondary. For the Bengals, I agree with you. I think they need to, get pressure on Matthew Stafford and force him to make mistakes. We've seen Matthew Stafford under pressure. He starts to, panic a little bit. That's kind of the one thing about him, and he'll make, questionable throws here and there. And, he's not perfect. We saw that, obviously, I believe he did have an interception, and then he had to throw to tart that was dropped. So this guy's not perfect by any means. He's a good quarterback, very good quarterback, but he's you get to him, he'll make mistakes. And I think for the Cincinnati Bengals, I think it's going to be very tough. But I think early on, I think this team needs to try to establish the run game, because I think if this team can establish the run, and I know how hard it's going to be seeing how it was last week against San Francisco. I mean, this team, that would be game changing if Cincinnati can get going with Joe Mixon and just have that in their back pocket to be able to use. I think that the run game for Cincinnati here is something that is key in their path to victory. I think beating the Rams through the air is just a nightmare kind of attempt to win this game. I think somehow you've just got to get Joe Mixon the ball.
I don't think I do agree, but I don't think they're going to be able to run on them either.
I don't think, but that's what I'm saying. I think it's going to be very hard, but in a key to victory, I think that's essential. If the Bengals, I think a Bengals Super Bowl victory, I think Joe Mixon has a good game. I think as good as Joe Burrow is, I think a Joe Mixon good performance is key for the Cincinnati Bengals to win the Super Bowl. I think it's just as simple as that. I think you got to be able to run the ball. Otherwise, could be a long day. But at the same time, who knows? You got to force turnovers too. I mean, I kind of touched on that with Stafford making mistakes, but force turnovers on that defense. We saw that with the Bucs game. That's the way the Bucs got back. They forced turnovers. Get fumbles, get picks. That's the essential. But I think the Rams have the clearer path to victory. But by no means can you count out the Cincinnati Bengals after what we've seen in these playoffs so far.
I gotta say, I know, the Chiefs fan is here again, but I am sad we don't get to watch a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl, but I'm rooting for the Bengals here, Griff. I gotta say, I'm rooting for the Bengals here. I want to see Joe Burrow end the drought. I really do. And I hate the Rams. God, do I hate Sean McVay and do I hate the Rams. That's my personal opinion, Stephen, at the end of the NFL season here. I'm still probably going to end up, maybe picking them next weekend. But I'm rooting for Joe Burrow, just to make that clear. But I do feel a little robbed of a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl because I think that would have been an outstanding game.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk a lot more on that game next week. We kind of already talked a good bit about it, though, and you can probably tell our predictions kind of seeping through for what we think is going to happen. But with that, we are going to talk about just for a few minutes. I mean, it's kind of hard to discuss in full, and I don't think it's the most interesting topic per se, but Tom Brady, obviously, this week announcing his retirement from the NFL. I was shocked. I'm going to be honest, even with all the Schefter reports, I still thought we were going to see him for one more year, and I thought he might end it on a Super Bowl. I mean, I don't know. It's just it's weird that he just ended it for me just on a loss like that. But I think clearly that, he's played in the league for so long, played so many games. I think he just, at this point, he realized he's done enough. He's done it all. Nothing to come back for, really. I mean, he's already the GOAT. Why risk your body? Why risk your health for another season? What a career. I mean, stats, you can read them all. Just a sensational player, the greatest of all time, arguably the greatest athlete of all time. I mean, he's in the top 2 or 3 for me, and he might even be number 1. I think it's, I don't really know what my top 3 even would look like, but he's up there. I know that. I mean, just what a sensational player, a true winner, a guy who, was counted out at the start of his career, and look where he ended up. It's truly astonishing, and, congratulations to him on a great career. It's honestly, the New England days I didn't enjoy watching, but these last few seasons in Tampa Bay, I've really just enjoyed watching Tom Brady and just with that offense. I mean, it was just a fun team to watch, if I'm being honest, in Tampa Bay.
I mean, I'm sure you didn't enjoy it too much when he was abusing your Jets for 20 years. But what stood out to me kind of is he has a lot of love for Tampa Bay and that Buccaneers organization, man. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot of outpouring of love, and I get he left his farewell to New England a couple of years ago, but man, I was expecting a little more New England love in that post and what he's said publicly. But a lot of it is like, thank you anyway. But yeah, just to echo everything you said, obviously the GOAT, best winner in the history of the sport, maybe best winner ever in any sport. And I think he's definitely become more of like a human being, if that makes sense, in these last couple of years.
Yeah, we've seen more of his personality.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I'll ever come to love Tom Brady as a lot of people do, but I definitely respect him as a winner, and I'll always be glad that the Eagles defeated him in the last Super Bowl that he lost. So yeah, it'll be my takeaway on Tom Brady.
Yeah, great career, no doubt. Just wanted to, obviously big news. Just kind of wish him well in his retirement and whatnot. But with that, I wish we could talk some baseball today, but I mean, we really can't. It's so difficult. And as soon as this whole CBA, whatever they're even doing, the lockout gets negotiated, we'll start. Once free agents start signing, we'll start giving our predictions for the season, kind of talk it through. I know Mets and Phillies and all that. We're going to be talking a lot about that, and I know both of us, being the fans that we are, think our team will win it all each year, but probably not going to happen. But we'll see. But with that, we're going to talk about the NBA some, and it's been a very interesting. The trade deadline, I believe, is on Thursday. With both of our favorite teams, the Cavs for me, the Sixers for Rob, both very engaged in the trade market. Sixers have been linked to James Harden, which is what we're going to start with. Cavs linked to a guy like Karis LeVert, who's a great player. NBA is an interesting, but James Harden, I mean, this has been the guy who's been in the news for the last week or so. A lot of turmoil, a lot of reports that he wants out, he's not happy. Just a weird whole situation. I mean, a year ago, this team was, the team that was going to dominate for years, and now, I mean, they might never even win a title. That's pretty astonishing. But James Harden, the Philly rumors, I mean, obviously, I guess Ben Simmons would have to be in the deal, I'd assume, which is weird. I don't know how it'd really even fit into Brooklyn on that team. Weird situation. But, I mean, Rob, what are your thoughts on this whole James Harden situation? What do you think it would take to even get him? And, what do you think if, let's say, he is traded to Philadelphia, Ben Simmons goes the other way? I know they won't trade Maxey, but I don't really know. Maybe Thibault goes the other way, some guys like that.
I mean, I think Joel Embiid is playing at as high a level right now as anybody is in the league, in the world. I think you have to do whatever you can to maximize his prime. Anything you can. I think the only piece for the Sixers that needs to be off the table is Tyrese Maxey. Just because I know that James Harden contract is going to be, like I said, you got to take him on, but James Harden next contract is going to be pretty ugly. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it. If you're going to win a championship though, and if you're going to give your team the best shot to win a championship, it's all about, to me, just giving your team the best shot to win. You can't reasonably say, as a Sixers fan, or if you're Daryl Morey, trading away some of my trade chips for James Harden isn't the best course of action, because it is. It clearly is. This guy is what gives you the best shot to win a championship. Sixers fans were talking about Tyrese Halliburton, Harrison Barnes in a first-round pick, and this and this and that. Everybody knew that was never going to happen. I think it's just annoying to me. Everybody's like, "Oh, why is Daryl Morey still holding out? This, that." This is why he was still holding out. Because unpredictable shit happens in the NBA all the time. Its landscape changes so quickly, so much faster than I think even like football or other, major professional sports leagues. Because like you said, less than a year ago, I mean, you could have tapped the Nets to win 2 or 3 championships, and they've imploded in less than a year. One of the members of their big three is going to be traded by the same trade deadline by which he was almost brought in the year before. It's insane. It's like, I mean, I've always been sort of like, against this notion that like, too many ball dominant players, blah, 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 this, because we've seen it work in Miami. We've seen it work, back to the 80s with the Celtics even, you've seen it work very recently with the Golden State Warriors. But man, this really seemed to be true this time. And I get a lot of unpredictable stuff happens. Obviously Kyrie only being a part-time player, Katie's injury issues still lingering, but just a nasty, I think a very toxic situation in Brooklyn. And I think this is only going to end with him being traded to Philadelphia. I hate to say it. No, I don't hate to say it, but I love to say it, but
yeah, I mean, it's pretty insane. I mean, the whole Ben Simmons thing is also insane. I mean, this guy,
yeah.
I mean, he's just thrown away his career at this point, and it's why it's like, if I'm the Nets, I mean, this guy, I mean, I think, I don't even know how this would work. I mean, the Kevin Durant injury has changed the Brooklyn Nets, I think, their entire future in a way, because their team has crumbled apart without him. You've got Kyrie Irving, who obviously, we're not going to get into his whole ordeal, but he's obviously like a part-time player. James Harden is just not happy. I mean, it's so weird. And I mean, look at this team, man. in the acquiring of James Harden, of their superstars, they gave their entire future. I mean, Jared Allen, this guy's been an all-star for Cleveland. Karis LeVert, he's been a sensational player this year for Indiana. They traded these guys that have just been sensational players away for, Harden, essentially. I believe that was at that deadline. I mean, that trade for Cleveland was huge because they got Jared Allen for, a bag of cookies, essentially. What a deal that was for them. But
Sorry. Let me interject in the Jared Allen deal for a second because it's like one of my favorite things to mention. The Rockets flipped Jared Allen for a late first round pick in that trade, which is like
it was like Jared Allen and
just like abysmal.
Because it was like Jared Allen and Taurean Prince for
it was like a 14 trade. Yeah.
Who were the players that went? I mean, it was some scrubs who went back, like some scrubs who went. I can look it up right now.
Yeah, it was bad for the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, Jared Allen is an all-star. Was he selected? I don't even know if he's officially selected.
He won't, but I think he might replace Kevin Durant, to be honest.
Yeah, that dude's an all-star. I mean, he's one of the best. He's been one of the best big men in the entire NBA this season.
Yeah. They sent Dante Exum and a first-round pick to Houston, and a second-round pick they sent to Brooklyn, and they got Jared Allen.
What a joke! What robbery from the Cleveland Cavaliers.
And it was via Milwaukee, the Bucks' first-round pick.
Oh my God! Tillman Fertitta is just he's a gift that keeps on giving for the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you're the Sixers, I mean, the Eastern Conference, it's looking like it's going to be a bloodbath in these playoffs, to be honest. I mean, there are so many teams. I mean, even in the play-in right now, I mean, I'm looking at the standings every day, and I'm worried that, if you go on a losing streak, you're dropping to the play-in. I mean, look at the Nets.
The Sixers, I was talking about this with my friends the other night. The Sixers, people were coming off high against that win off Memphis. We won without Embiid against a great team. And then they lost on Wednesday night to the Wizards, and I was like, we're going to spiral because we have the Mavs on the road, the Bulls on the road, and then the Suns. You had to win that game. If you were on a 4-game losing streak, you're in the 8th seed all of a sudden. Like, it's insane.
It's insane, and it's a nightmare right now in the East. I mean, you got the Cavs. I mean, all the top teams, the Heat, the Bulls, the Cavs, the Bucks, the 76ers, you've got the
Raptors,
the Hornets, the Hawks have kind of emerged all of a sudden back into the mix of things. I mean, it's a nightmare in the East. So, I mean, I think in the East, James Harden for the Sixers, I mean, that changes that team completely, especially since Ben Simmons has not been there. It's not like you're replacing a guy.
It's not like you're replacing
producing.
Anything.
I mean, you're just adding you're adding James Harden for, the other players. I'm assuming they have to give probably Thibault or someone. I mean, Thibault is a key player, though. I mean, they really need to keep him at all costs.
I would definitely rather give up Thibault than the likes of like a Seth Curry, though. For me, I think Seth Curry is. Yeah, I think Seth Curry is definitely one of those players that could be heading back to Brooklyn, and I really hate to do that because he is such a perfect fit with Embiid and Harden, and he's a really lethal weapon for any playoff team. But I think that might be one of the guys that you could see going back to Brooklyn in the potential trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really pinpoint the exact. I mean, it might even be a 3-team deal. I mean, it's kind of really hard to pinpoint exactly who and what would fit. I mean, it's all very weird, but I think James Harden, like you said, I mean, the Sixers. I mean, it has been these last few years have just been a nightmare for them in terms of the fit playoffs and the fans are at this point are just getting very frustrated. I mean, they don't even have a finals appearance to show for it. And at this point, they've been, one of these top teams in the East for 4 or 5 years now at this point with the Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Toby Harris. You brought in Jimmy Butler here for a year. And I mean, it's kind of just been a disaster. And they need to do whatever they can to win because at this point, this current team's not going to, I'm going to be honest, like they'll go in the first round or the second round. Like, especially without Ben Simmons. I mean, Ben Simmons, what a nightmare he was last year, but he's still a very good player. And like, he's only going to help your team.
It's just like, if this deal goes through, like, and if Ben comes back to the Wells Fargo Center in a 7-game playoff series, I think he would cry on the court. I think he would start crying on the court, or he would fake an injury.
Yeah, I mean, it would be crazy, but I mean, James Harden easily gives the Sixers a legitimate shot, and would it make them favorites? It's hard to say, honestly, who would be favorites in the East right now. But, I mean, you're able to at least – I see a path for them to come out of the East. Right now, I just don't see them being able to win 3 playoff series.
Right, and that's all that it's about. It's about maximizing your championship window. And James Harden might not be MVP James Harden, the greatest scorer ever, 36, 10, and 8 every night, which is insane that he averaged 36 points a game. But he's still an all-pro caliber player. He really is. I mean, this guy is averaging like 24, 11, and 9 right now. Or I don't know what it is in his last 20 games or something like that. I mean, I think the situation between James Harden and the Nets fan base is very toxic right now, Griffin.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
averaging
it seems like it's only inevitable that this deal happens at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that deal would not have leaked he's averaging 22 and a half points a game and 10 assists a game. I mean, what that would do for the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, just open your championship window. You have to open it for when you have a player as special as Joel Embiid, a guy who's going to walk into the Basketball Hall of Fame. You cannot waste his prime like this. You have to make this deal.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see. Seems like he was hurt yesterday, so he might be even banged up right now. But
is he hurt or is he
he's got a hamstring? So even if he's faking, it's never a good thing to hear. But man, it what a nightmare for the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, even if they trade for Ben Simmons, is the guy even going to play this year? I mean, that's a whole nother issue.
He'll play as soon as he's traded. He's going to play. Don't worry.
You think? But he's not going to be ready to go. It's not like this guy can just jump off.
He'll ramp up. No. What'll happen is they'll trade for him. He'll ramp up for like 2 weeks to a month, and then he'll start playing again. Then they'll work him back in by the time the playoffs start. 100%.
What a weird team. I mean, Kevin Durant.
What a weird team, right?
Ben Simmons.
What a weird team.
In a way, Brooklyn could use some defense, man. I think Ben Simmons could really be a good piece.
He'd be a great fit there. He would be a great fit in Brooklyn, for sure.
I mean, they've already got good scores, so all of a sudden, I mean, you also – if you added like a Seth Curry too, I mean, they need depth too. They need some pieces. So I think it's a good trade for both sides and maximizes, honestly, both teams. Because Harden, I mean, I don't know his deal, but I think it's either this is the last year or whatnot. Like, it's going to be gone. So, like, I think it's a deal that they got to do. I'm very curious to see. In terms of the rest of the NBA, though, go ahead.
I do think that the Nets, they have no leverage here. I mean, the Sixers usually, when they talk to teams, they're the ones who don't have any leverage, but if James Harden is truly gone in the summer, they're not going to let him walk for nothing or get minimal value on a sign-in trade. If he's gone, they have to trade him, and they will.
Yeah, I mean, they should. It's the smartest thing that franchise can do right now. It would be trade James Harden. If everything we hear is truly true, which I believe, I mean, there's no reason to keep him at this point. But I mean, the rest of this NBA, I mean, the West is so weird because the West is a nightmare. I mean,
you have like 2 to 3 top teams, and the rest of the West is really terrible.
I mean, we obviously had that trade with Norman Powell, but I mean, how significant is that? I mean, the Kawhi Leonard, you hear he's probably done. He's not even playing this year.
I think nightmare. Next year, the Clippers might be very scary, but I don't really see them making much of a threat this year.
These LA teams, I guess the Lakers have a championship to show for it. So it's a lot different, but I mean, these LA teams, it was really supposed to be, the elite dynasty for years. And I mean, the Clippers and both teams are playing teams right now. What a disaster. I mean, I'll be honest. I think either the Suns or the Warriors are coming out, and I don't think any other team has a shot in the Western Conference. The Suns are.
The Suns are.
I think it's gonna be the Warriors, man. I think it's gonna be the Warriors. I don't think.
I gotta say, man, those Suns are strong, Griffin. Those Suns are strong, and I really think it's all contingent on the play of Steph Curry, because for as great as Steph is, he hasn't been Steph level good over like the past 2 months.
I think there's been a post going around. I think a lot. I've seen it a lot. It's like the shooting towards. Yeah. So funny.
And it's crazy because they're still like 39 and 13 or 38 and 13, whatever they are.
40 and 13. Yeah.
40 and 13. Sorry. But like you said, I think there's 2 teams at the top, and then I think the Memphis Grizzlies have a really good young card. But for me personally,
they might get bounced.
to take them seriously, they need like another star to go with. They need another star to go with Ja, I think, and I think that can even come within the team. I think Jaren Jackson Jr.'s development is going to be something to really keep an eye on for the Memphis Grizzlies. And Desmond Bane is a player. I mean, he can shoot the hell out of the ball. But they're a great young team, and I think they can, maybe get to the second round. I don't think they're on the caliber of a team like you said, like the Warriors or the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And then all of a sudden, you got the East right now, which like we've kind of talked about. There's 9 teams right now who are separated by 5.5 games at the top of the division. Which is terrifying because
55 games into the season too.
It's insanity because you can just immediately go on a 3-game losing streak, and all of a sudden you're in the play-in, and you might even be. You could be the 9 seed in the play. The
Yeah.
Hornets a few weeks ago were the 6 seed, and now all of a sudden they're the 9 seed. They're like
Yep.
barely they went on a 3-game losing streak, and like we've been saying, I mean the Nets right now are on a 7-game losing streak. I mean they're just Nets by the day, and the Raptors
They're going to lose tonight too.
and then like the Raptors, the Celtics, they've each won 4 or 5 games in a row. Like those teams are immediately shooting up. It's just it's insane right now, and
it's crazy.
It's terrifying because
and it's really awesome because it's giving more weight to these regular season games. Finally, after years of watching,
every single regular season game with any of these teams is insanely important.
Yeah, I mean, and the playing gives it that added importance too, man. Because there's motivation to get out of the play-in and to stay in the play-in. So,
I mean, you've got like the New York Knicks. I mean, what a nightmare of a season for them. They're the current 12 seed, 9 out of the first. I mean, they're not in the range where they can't make the play-in. They're game out of the 10 seed, but this team is horrific. I mean, Julius Randle. I mean, this guy was like the savior of Knicks basketball a year ago, and all of a sudden, I mean, the fans hate him. Everyone wants him gone, it seems like. I mean, it's just – I think anyone could have told you last year that Julius Randle on a championship contending team is more of a mediocre 2-piece on a championship team and a very good 3 on a championship team.
I don't even know about a mediocre 2. I'd say he'd be an all right 3 on a championship team. Griffin, he has been next level terrible this year.
He's been pretty bad.
I mean, I think – there's a theme with Julius Randle where he has had 2 elite NBA seasons in his career, and they've both come right before the year where he was due before his next big contract. And listen, I respect the hell out of that. I gotta say, giving your maximum effort right before to get those profits. But like you said, Julius Randle as the one on a team for an extended period of a time, not gonna work. And I think that Tom Thibodeau process, where he has a honeymoon period and then fans sort of get worn out by his rotations. That process seems to be getting sped up significantly this time around in New York.
I mean, they traded a first-round pick and more for Cam Reddish, and the guy's not even in the rotation. I mean, that stuff is just mind-blowing to me. And I know the Knicks have. It's just because it's so stupid because you look at their lineup that they're running out. I mean, Quentin Grimes has played good. You've got Obi Toppin, guys like that, but like.
Yeah, these young guys. I mean, these young guys haven't been playing bad, but you have is Taj Gibson still there?
He had 2 minutes. I mean, Alec Burks has been bad. Obi Toppin's good. Kemba Walker's been. They just run. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys, but Quickly's been fine. It's just it's hard to pinpoint because it's Cam Reddish just has to be in that rotation. I'm sorry, but his potential is even. It's just tough because it's you look at the guys and it's this isn't that bad, but they're just not good enough. That's the problem. I think they're just not that good of players, to be honest. I mean, they're just mediocre, all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But what else is there going on in the
NBA?
Just any other
NBA that there's no I think the Bucks are a really strong team in the East still. I mean,
you cannot count out the Bucks.
I would probably say that they're even the favorite, arguably, right now. If I had to pick any team in the East to come out, I'd probably pick the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, we've talked a lot about Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid, and rightfully so, because they've been on another planet this year. But Giannis Antetokounmpo has not lost a step at all, man. I mean, he's been dominant. His shooting has been a lot better this year as well, which is very scary. But this dude is he's one of the all-time greats. I have to say it. He really is. And I just think the Bucks with Giannis, they have to be the favorites in the East right now for me.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to lean towards teams who have the superstars. And I think right now there's 3 teams with true superstars in the Eastern Conference, which is the Sixers, the Bucks, and the Nets. Now, I don't think the Sixers' current state or the Nets' current state, to be honest. I mean, the Nets are, who knows what we have to see after the trade.
Right, both
those teams are going to look completely different potentially. Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to say, but you look at some of these teams. I mean, look, the Raptors, Celtics, Hornets. To be honest, I mean, I don't want to.
I think the Raptors
want to be jumping the gun on Cleveland, but I truly believe Cleveland has the ability to come out of the East. I mean, I don't think they will per se, but I mean, they're a scary team with those 2 big guys in Darius Garland. I mean, especially if they make a move and Sexton comes back to Kevin Love also. I mean, rejuvenated his whole career. I mean, he has been sensational this season off the bench. He honestly, I mean, I don't know all the sixth man, but like he's got to be up there for the sixth man of the year award. I mean, he's been sensational off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Love has completely. I mean, him or Tyler Hero is going to win the sixth man of the year award this year. But Darius Garland and Evan Mobley are special. I mean, I really think those dudes are going to run the East in a number of years. I mean, Garland and Mobley are special. Now,
Jared Allen's on a 5-year contract for $20 million a year. Like,
yeah, great value.
Amazing.
But I do have a question. So I think if I were a Cavs fan, for me, but you know better than me, I would probably be looking to deal Sexton away in the offseason to get a return, because I think you found your guy in Garland. If that was ever, I think there was probably a decision where they were going to have to decide whether to keep both or keep one or the other after this year, and that sort of become clear.
Yeah, I mean, Colin Sexton, I believe he's a free agent, restricted free agent at the end of the year. So it's going to be very interesting to see, and especially coming off this injury, if he does return to the playoffs, I mean, that could really change his value. But, I mean, he is a very ball-dominant player who his main thing is shooting the basketball, which I think with the Cavs right now, what makes them so good is, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, obviously these guys take a lot of shots, but I feel like they don't have one guy who's consistently like the guy there, like in the LeBron days. LeBron was going to shoot like 20 times a game. Like you don't really have that, Darius Garland one night could be, shooting 20 shots, but then the next night he'll shoot like 10 shots and have 15 assists or something like that, So with Sexton, I mean, it's kind of hard to say how he'd fit into this current Cavs team and how they've played this year. I agree with you. I do lean that, maybe for the future, he's not the guy. But, I mean, at the same time, this guy's a talented player. I think he'd only help the team, especially for the playoffs. I think, you can only hope this guy's there. I mean, they've been interested in Karis LeVert, who I think would be a great move for them. I think he's another player who would really help them. But, yeah, I mean, the Colin Sexton, obviously Garland has established himself. If they're going to choose between the two, you're obviously going to choose Darius Garland at this point. But I don't know. I think the Cavs do like him, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him return. But I don't know. It's kind of one of those things that's a difficult situation, I would say, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the East is just tough. And I think you really just got to be looking out for this Harden Simmons trade, because it's going to bomb the landscape of the East.
Because it completely changes two teams.
And I think we haven't touched on a team. I'm surprised you haven't. The Miami Heat, I think, are a threat in the East as well. I got to say, They have the Sixers number. We beat them last time, but Butler and Bam, I don't know. I get they're the bubble guppies and this and the bubble boys, but they scare me, man. They really do. I think, like you said, they have so many guys who can score. I think Tyler Hero has stepped up in a huge way this game. Duncan Robinson has been pretty bad this year, though, which I think is definitely a concern for them, considering they're paying him $18 million a year. But Jimmy and Bam, man, they haven't been healthy all year, really, and they're still the 1 seed. They're finally getting healthy again. They're finally reacclimating Bam and Jimmy back together. And I got to say, it's a little scary, man. It's a little scary.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think for me, I feel like that team's just one of those teams that I just always expect to like win a series or two and then in the end just like lose. But I don't know. I think they're a threat. I mean, them and the Bulls, if the Bulls are healthy, they're a phenomenal team as well. I mean, they've got some studs there. That's what I'm saying with the East. It's just like, it's really hard to say what's going to happen, because I think in the East, you want to look at the guys. I think the three teams that have the superstars of the East, you've got the teams like the Bulls and the Heat, who are extremely well-rounded, have a ton of good players, but don't really have a true like superstar per se. They have elite players, all-stars, but not a superstar. And then you've got kind of like these weird teams. Like I would put Cleveland in like a weird team kind of spot, where it's like they've got this mix of chemistry, youth, they're big boys and their defense that makes them a tough team that can go up against anybody. Charlotte, maybe you could throw in there, or the Raptors, but like I think really those 6 teams that are at the top right now, or I can see any one of them coming out at the moment. I don't, but I want to say Philadelphia. I can't see coming out right now, but I know they're probably going to end up trading for Harden. It's like, but they even with if Joel Embiid is playing as good as he is, the Sixers can win any basketball game that they play. So that's the key, and that's why if they didn't have Joel Embiid, and let's say they I mean, who's a good offensive center? Like, let's say Nikola Vucevic. I mean, it's hard to really compare, but like a worse Joel Embiid, like they wouldn't be coming out. But the way he's playing, and as sensational as he is, he can win any basketball game for them.
Yeah, and I think, I'm just happy there was parity again in the NBA finally after 9, 10, 15 years even.
I didn't mind the LeBron years in Cleveland.
Of course. Well, I'm a big LeBron guy, and I'm a big LeBron guy. But I'm speaking more so about the Golden State Warriors. I think because, God, it sucked watching them dominate every year. But I'm glad the Nets imploded. I gotta say, especially since it benefited my team. But I'm glad they imploded. Their whole organization, I don't know. It's just like it feels super artificial, and like there doesn't really feel like a lot of love. Like no one really cares about them, and they feel sort of like this like modern team almost that's like trying to come in, and they don't really have like an established fan base at all, and like nobody cares about them in Brooklyn because they moved from New Jersey, and it's like no one wants to see you win. You have no fans. It's like watching Los Angeles Chargers try to win a game. Like you don't have any fans. No one wants to see you win.
Yeah, it's crazy. Chargers, yeah. I mean, it's funny because you have the Chargers who, they have no fans, but a team like the Raiders who moved in, man, that's a tough place to play all of a sudden. That's we're just going all over the place at the end of this episode, but
listen,
yeah, I mean,
we got some good NBA talk in here. I mean, I think
we did. And we'll talk next week. Maybe we'll post something if there's a lot of action. If there's some truly big moves, we'll probably film something separate and post it on OTA Clips, our second channel. So just be on the look for that. I mean, if James Harden really does get traded, we did a James Harden video to the Nets last year on there. Now it'll be a James Harden the 76ers video up this year. But I just assume to see some sort of separate content for that, because I think on the main channel, we're really going to go into the NFL. I mean, the NFL's got a whole lot of stuff going on. The Brian Flores lawsuit, we're not going to touch that, but what a crazy time it is in the NFL. The Washington Commanders too. They changed their team name. Got some pretty cool uniforms. I'll be honest. The name, I don't hate the name. I'll be honest. I think it's fine.
I've warmed up to it a little bit, but it's very like XFL-y to me. Very arena football.
Yeah, I get that. So with that, I hope by this time next week the MLB has made progress. I'm kind of sick of this. We're really, as much football as we love, I'd say both of our true passions are honestly baseball. I think that's like maybe not for you, but at least for me, I know, I think baseball is something that
we need this lockout to end for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
I want to see some deals. I mean, it's going to be I think the whole market is going to be sensational to watch post lockout, because I think it's going to be a total just race to get signed. I think some players are going to lose out on some. Like, I cannot see Carlos Correa getting $36+ million a season. I just don't see it happening.
We'll see. I mean, like you said, it's going to be, your phone getting blown up every 20 seconds. It's going to be, you just want to.
No, it's going to be quick because these players, it's going to be right in spring training. We just want, our Major League Baseball back. We want to see, we want our Twitter feeds getting blown up with. I want to see Max Scherzer in a Mets jersey. Like, I haven't even seen him.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if we can agree on that one, but
it's going to be weird to see, man. I mean, it's
going to be so weird.
He's tortured us for many years, but with that, that will do it for this week's episode of Outside the Arena. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Outside the Arena. Check us out on Instagram at Outside the Arena Podcast. Follow us both on Instagram. The links to that will be in the description. And yeah, with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for the big Super Bowl episode. A lot of content next week. Very excited. Take it easy, guys.